What is going on, everyone? Welcome to week finals of the CBDL. We again did not make playoffs in CGT, so what I wanted to do for these last few weeks before BDSP comes out is upload some more draft league content with this side league CBDL that I've been doing alongside CGT. And in this league, we have made it to finals. So you can see below, we are 10-0. Our opponent in finals, RazorrClawww, one of my closest friends. His link will be in the description. Please, please, please go check him out because he's the previous UPBA champion who took my crown from Season 2 since I didn't compete in Season 3. So he's great. He's great. Please go check him out. And he's one of my closest friends and an all-around great guy. So I'm happy to play him in finals of this league, but it is a very, very similar, familiar situation to if anyone here saw my UBL run, in which I went 9-0, got the playoffs bye, won semis, was entering finals at 10-0, and then I lost. And for Razor is a replacement coach, and the person I lost to, Jack, aka Gravy, who's also in CGT, amazing person, beat me, and he was a replacement coach, just like Razor's a replacement coach in this league. So there's so many confounding factors here that are so coincidental that it's beginning to freak me out, and I'm a little terrified headed into this game that I am definitely not going to do very well just because of karma or like coincidences or just like, I don't know, I'm superstitious like that, right? To add insult to injury, this is going to be a post-commentary game. And the UBL finals was also a post-commentary game. A little nutty, but I guess it was meant to be. But yeah, it's going to be a post-commentary game, unfortunately, because my recording became corrupted. Luckily, Razor was generous enough to send me his footage of his side, so I'm going to commentate over the game, and, you know, this is kind of something I miss doing a lot, which is the heavy, deep analytical thinking into a game. And since it's a finals game, there was a lot of thinking. There was a lot of stuff going on here. So I hope that the sort of meticulous analysis of the matchup, of the build, and everything else, game included, will be sufficient enough for, you know, a very sort of informative, educational video about Draft League and, you know, playing an in-depth finals game. So that was the goal in the UBL finals video. You all seem to like it, so we're going to be repeating that here since I have no other choice. So in front of you, you can see the matchup that I have in front of Razor, and the mons that are not listed on the screen right now are Grovyle and Wigglytuff. Spoiler alert, neither of us bring Grovyle or Wigglytuff, so let's just look at these top ones because it's easier to fit on my layout. He has a very, very scary team with Coco Landorus, very, very potent threats right there, and going to be extremely hard to find specific answers to both of them. Namely, Landorus is really strong offensively against my team. My ground resist is like a Selgor and Blossom, which isn't like defensive ideally. Like Blossom gets U-turned on and a Selgor just dies to a Stone Edge. I have things like Rotom Heat and Noivern as ground immunities, but neither of them want to take a Stone Edge, so Edgequake in general goes into my team very, very well. Coco, I don't think is as big of a threat against me because I have a Rotom Heated Diggersby and a Seismitoad. He's going to be prepared for all of those things on top of my multiple options for Scarfers, which is going to be very important. Ferrothorn is just scary because of spikes and spike stacking and such. That's something that I'm going to keep an eye out for because he does love his hazard stack. Grimmsnaw is kind of iffy. It could be extremely versatile. It could do literally anything. It could set screens, could be banded, could be 4 attacks, could be Prankster T-Wave, it could be Trick Iron Ball or Trick, you know, Choice Item. There's so much stuff it can do, and it's been very different every single time I've seen it in mocks. Starmie's a 100% bring. I just stack one to Starmie every time. I was like trying to make certain mons I could switch in, like Floatstone Seismitoad or like maybe an AV Wigglytuff, but like it just didn't work. I couldn't swap anything into an Analytic Life Orb, Hydro Pump, or Scald or Surf, so yeah, that's definitely coming, and I just got to play the game offensively enough so that it doesn't bite me in the butt. Beware could be anything. It could be AV, it could be Fizdef. He brought a Fizdef variant in semifinals where he won against Lucas. Quillfish, I think, is a very, very possible bring. I think it either comes offensively as either Scarf or Rain Dance in order to outpace something like Scarf Diggersby or Scarf Urshifu. Or, you know, it comes as a spike stacker. But if it comes as a spike stacker, it makes me think well, Pharaoh could be something else. So if I see Pharaoh and Quillfish, I kind of assume Quillfish is going to be in more offensive position. If I don't see Pharaoh, then I assume that Quillfish is the spike stacker. Rapidash, I think, is a very interesting mon. I think if it comes, it's a million gajillion % going to be Solar Blade for Seismitoad. Not going to be the biggest deal in the world because, spoiler alert, I'm not bringing Seismitoad. And then Haunter is Haunter. Like, I feel okay against Haunter. I have solid resist in Urshifu and Diggersby. I have solid bonds like Spadef-wise, and I have good speed against it and a ton of priority. So I don't feel too concerned about it. It could be some kind of sash set that kind of is frustrating, but other than that, not the biggest deal in the world. So let us show what I am bringing to our game. Alright, we are here for the team builder against Razor. We are bringing a very offensive team because we don't defensively deal with his mon super great, and I think our offense has a really good matchup against him. Starting with Scarf Urshifu Single Strike. Scarf Urshifu Single Strike, like against most teams, has a really solid matchup here. His best resists are things like Tapu Koko, which does resist my dual stab, but won't take a poison jab very well. He could also, you know, play around with some kind of defensive Grimmsnarl or defensive Beware even to chunk some of my hits, but generally speaking, if I can just keep U-turning and chipping everything, eventually I'll be able to get everything in range of either my stab attacks or poison jabs, so I'm not too concerned about it. I don't think Urshifu is going to be the star of this game. I think it just forces a lot of prep on its own, and that's something I've been discovering throughout the season. Urshifu, generally speaking, even though I think it is the kill leader of this league, it hasn't been like the mon that has like carried this team. It's mostly been a lot of my other offensive mons because there's so much on my opponent's builds that are there to deal with Urshifu. So yeah, I think generally it's just going to be there to bait out the checks that I think he'll have for it, like Koko, and that will get Koko and potentially Beware, potentially Grimmsnarl, potentially Chopple, Ferrothorn, whatever, in range of some of my other sort of offensive threats. The next mon on my team is one of the first sets I created, and that is Sub Willow Hex Gengar. I'm running this set because I think that it is, or Will-O-Wisp in particular, is particularly strong against Razor's team. His dark type is Grimmsnarl, which, to revenge me without taking a Sludge Bomb, it relies on Sucker Punch. So if I can catch him on a Sucker Punch and click Will-O-Wisp, that's really nice for me. Substitute is really great too because I've EV'd myself in a way where Quillfish with no hit will ever break my sub unless it's offensive. And if I Will-O-Wisp the Ferrothorn and let it knock off my Black Sludge, it also can't break my sub with another knockoff. So that's another thing for me to consider with Will-O-Wisp. Generally speaking, it's just going to neuter a lot of things as I spread residual around on Ferrothorn and on Landorus and on Grimmsnarl and whatever. And then Hex is going to be really nice pairing with that Will-O-Wisp, and Substitute is also going to be equally nice to try and, you know, either when I force a switch I can go for sub and not have to predict, or I can go for sub knowing that I take a hit from like a burned Ferrothorn or something. Sludge Bomb is there for the Grimmsnarl. I considered Icy Wind, I considered Taunt, I considered a few other things, but I think Sludge Bomb is the best possible option because it at least hits the Beware and hits the Grimmsnarl, and I think that's a little bit the most important thing to consider with this Gengar set, which is sort of meant to be a sort of disruptor role this week, which I'm hoping it will end up being. My next mon is Spadef Rotom Heat. This is a fairly obvious bring. I'd be shocked if he didn't see this coming. It is there to take on the Tapu Koko. With Nasty Plot, I should be able to beat most Calm Mind sets 1v1 with the exception of sort of stored power sets that manage to get up quicker than I'm able to get up quicker. Basically, if he's up to +2 before I even switch Rotom in, then I'm in a little bit of trouble, but I should always be switching Rotom into, you know, Koko. So hopefully we never have that issue. But Overheat, Volt Switch, Pain Split does a lot. Overheat, generally, he does not have a great swap into. His water type is Starmie, and if I can pop that and catch it on a Volt Switch, that's going to be great, but I don't think he's ever going to go Starmie on Rotom Heat because he just can't risk it. It's his best offensive mon against me, so I feel like if I Rotom Heat out, I'm most often clicking Overheat this game. Overheat, generally speaking, does a lot to him. I could see a Spadef Landorus potentially to come and take this on because that's what I brought CGT week 4 against Migs when I had the Lando and he had the Rotom Heat, but I think nonetheless it's still a very important bring, and it's not like I have a better option than Overheat to hit, you know, the entire team neutrally. So even if I'm just doing 35-40% to Landorus, to a Spadef Landorus on switch in, I'm perfectly okay with that chip because it's going to put it in range of numerous other things like Urshifu and Gengar. So that should be perfectly okay. Overheat's just pretty spammable. Pain Splits to get recovery, and Nasty Plot is to beat the Koko 1v1. So that is cool. This is a scissor set that isn't technician because I'm not running bullet punch. I played around with this set quite a bit, especially a few hours leading up to when this game was played. But I was originally boots with knockoff instead of superpower, but it just kept getting so chipped in front of Pharaoh, and I just wasn't able to remove hazards in one of my mocks. So I opted for a protective pad superpower set. That is, if he leads Ferrothorn and I lead Scissor, I can sort of go for superpower, make Ferrothorn take like 50%, he'll go for rocks, I can just click U-turn and go into Rotom, do some offensive pressuring, and even though since I don't have boots I will be taking hazard damage now, I think that the fact that I won't be taking iron barbs kind of cancels out that risk anyway, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, it's there to be a main defogger. It also takes one hit from Starmie, maybe, I don't know, it depends on the set. If it's like Hydro Pump, I definitely don't, but if it's like Surf or Scald, I might. But the defense is a little bit more important here because I wanted to make sure that Earthquake from Landorus never 2-hit KO'd me, and that is what that is for. So yeah, this is a very, very fun set that I'm excited to bring, and I kind of am bringing it as a dick move because I want to flex on Razor. One of the times I've beaten Razor in my past before is with an Adrenaline Orb AG Slash, so I really want to beat him with an Adrenaline Orb Diggersby. He does have an Intimidate Quillfish and an Intimidate Landorus. Landorus being one of the two that I think is far more likely to possibly switch into this thing, and if I can get an Adrenaline Orb boost against the Landorus, I threaten it out with an Ice Punch the next turn, just deal very significant damage to his team. I don't think this thing is going to necessarily clean, although I have been able to do so in mocks when I just think everything is in range of Quick Attack. Adrenaline Orb hasn't even mattered, but I also see it sometimes being used as a mid-game breaker when my opponents in mocks do decide to bring Landorus in against Diggersby to try and like intimidate spam me against the Earthquake or whatever. So I like Adrenaline Orb here, even if it doesn't necessarily pop off. I think it has a good shot to possibly work, and it's nice sort of security. Generally speaking, even with the +1 boost, I'm not outspeeding Starmie, I'm not outspeeding Coco. He doesn't necessarily know that, so he might not go into those things right away. But generally speaking, Quick Attack's my best move for them anyway. I mean, Earthquake is technically my best move, but like, it's not as good for anything else if I'm forced to go Jolly, and that wouldn't be ideal. And I need Bulk as well to take, I believe, a +2 Dazzling Gleam from Coco, or I think it's +3 Dazzling Gleam from Coco, actually, from after a spike. So that is another thing that I wanted to make sure I was able to do. Last mon is Specs Noivern. I was playing around with some of these moves, but Boom Burst and Flamethrower were always going to be set on there. Boom Burst generally very spammable guns to him. His resist is Ferrothorn, and that's it. I mean, there's a Haunter, but I don't think Haunter's coming. Boom Burst very spammable against him, and he doesn't want to go into Ferrothorn on a Noivern, knowing that I could very easily click Flamethrower. I find myself seeing that this is the best revenge option against my opponent, because obviously once Starmie gets a kill, I want to have something that can very capably come back in front of Starmie and click a very, very strong hit. Air Slash is there as the stab, but Boom Burst generally hits harder against things like Lando or just anything neutral. Air Slash is just there for things like AV Beware if that ends up coming. That was something Vepsis brought in mocks against me. Or just being sort of a safe neutral click against like a Ferrothorn. So that is another possible option. Boom Burst does, I think, like 85 to 99 to Coco. So if I could like U-turn on Coco, if Coco's is switch in, given, you know, it resists and is immune to my stabs, he might swap it in. I click U-turn, and then the next time I have Noivern in, if he swaps in Coco again and click Boom Burst, that Coco is dead, which is freeing up a lot for my Urshifu. So that is this is kind of the main breaker on the team. Like, I don't think there is any mon on my team that I have a better option to break other than this Noivern, at least revenge and be powerful about doing so. I guess Diggersby could be a revenger in certain circumstances, but the way I visualized this team was seeing Noivern as an early game breaker, but I would have to keep it alive to revenge things, and then Diggersby would be a sort of late game mon. I would have to sort of mess around with Rotom Heat and Scizor early to gain sort of initiative into some of my offensive mons. However, that might be how the game plays out, that might not be how the game plays out, and you are going to find out how the game plays out. So let's get into the match. So just a reminder here for you all that this is going to be a post commentary, which means that we are looking at it from Razor's point of view and not mine. So definitely be sure to check out the team builder if you skipped it to see what my sets are, so you have a better understanding of my commentary throughout this sort of post commentary. So This is a very, very tricky lead situation for me. He ends up leading Rapidash, I'm not sure why, but let's talk about what I want to be doing. I decided that I thought Noivern was my best lead here, because as much as I had been leading things like Gengar and Scizor and Mox, I wanted to make sure that I had offensive pressure out the gate, because if he led Starmie, I want to make sure I forced that thing out. If he led something like Rapidash, same deal. If he led something more defensive like Ferrothorn, I want to make sure I pressured it out with a Flamethrower before it can get up like a Spike or something. So I send out the Noivern, and that clearly is not very ideal for his Rapidash, because he should know that if I am Choice Specs, if I am some kind of boosting item, I'm going to do a ridiculous amount of damage to this thing. So I do predict the switch out. I click this pretty quickly when I am playing the game, and I click the U-turn because I just don't think you stand against a Noivern, and I don't even think it had room for Play Rough, although I believe his set did have Play Rough. In the moment, I did not think he had room for Play Off, so Play Rough. I don't think he had room for Play Rough, so I am able to go for U-turn on the Grimmsnarl. Pretty clear thing for me. This is a very big moment in the game when Grimmsnarl comes out, because as much as it didn't seem like that was very much information, that was a lot of information. It had Frisk and not Prankster. And I feel like the only reason Grimmsnarl would have Frisk and not Prankster is if it doesn't have any Prankster moves to abuse. And I feel like if that's the case, it's probably some kind of offensive set, or is full with a lot of attacks, right? Maybe a 4 attack set, maybe a banded set, maybe something like that. But then I thought to myself, like, why would Grimmsnarl come in on a potential like Hurricane from Noivern, right? It could be Specs Hurricane, could be whatever. Basically, that turn alone kind of confirmed to me that this Grimmsnarl was AV, because it becomes very clear to me that like there's no other universe why you switch a Grimmsnarl in on a Noivern that could be potentially going for like a Specs Hurricane against you unless you're AV, and the Frisk as the ability confirmed that for me. So in this moment, I kind of think to myself, okay, I don't feel like I have to worry about screens, I don't feel like I have to worry about like, you know, Trick, Lagging Tail, or something like that. Let's just go into my Diggersby now and click a Swords Dance, right? And if I click a Swords Dance, it's going to force something to come in and take a massive hit. I don't think he's going to go immediately into Starmie, because Starmie doesn't want to take an Earthquake. I think he's going to go into something like his Landorus or his Ferrothorn. If he goes for Ferrothorn, I can just click Swords Dance and then click EQ. I didn't think Power Whip was very likely in this matchup because it didn't hit things like Scizor or Rotom, so I wasn't too threatened out by a Ferrothorn. If Ferrothorn comes in here, I just click Earthquake. If Landorus comes in here, I get my Adrenaline Orb, and I'm +1/+1. Essentially, I have a Dragon Dance for, you know, his team, which would be really scary against him. So my perception of this is that there is no drawback on going for Swords Dance here unless he miraculously, for some reason, decides to stay in or go into Starmie. That would make too much sense for me because he needs this Grimmsnarl for Noivern, and he needs Starmie for offensive pressure. So he does make the switch into Ferrothorn. He ends up seeing the SD on this turn, which is really big. Like, the fact that SD comes out here is really scary, because now Razor is put in this tough situation that he has to like basically pick a sack, right? Like, he considers clearly going into Rapidash and just sacking that off. I'm perfectly okay with that. I'm just able to fire off a really strong hit here. I didn't really care too much about what came in, what didn't come in. I always just knew for sure that I was going to get some kind of massive hit off. I was always going to get like a really tough hit, and that was going to be really effective in the game long term. So yeah, that is kind of what I decided to do. Like, there wasn't much strategy to it. Like, the strategy was literally just like, I would like to play a game 5v6. So whatever he was swapping in to sack, I was perfectly fine with. I think the fact that he sends in the Rapidashes he's contemplating right now during this time, you know, it's probably the mon I would have least liked to see sacked, but nonetheless, having put him in such a situation, I'm perfectly okay with that. This Rapidash is going to absolutely get destroyed and sent into another oblivion. But the reality is that I do still need to keep this Diggersby alive for the Koko. I told myself that I didn't want to risk this Diggersby until I knew exactly what the Koko was, because if the Koko was some kind of sub-toxic set or some kind of Calm Mind set that could beat my Rotom, I didn't want my ground type to be gone. So even though it would have given me momentum to stay in, just go for quick attack, and it would do like 70 to 80%, I do opt to switch out this turn, largely because I think that Scizor is kind of useless, and because if it's not Life Orb Hydro Pump, I take any 2 hits. Unfortunately, as you just saw, it is Life Orb Hydro Pump. So I get put in this situation where essentially I have to sack my Scizor, which is not very good. Like, I lose my defog option, and if Razor decides to start like hazard stacking middle of the game, I all of a sudden have no opportunity to like do anything about that. And that's especially difficult because my Noivern isn't boots, it's specs this week. So if he ends up getting rocks up somehow or something, in my mind, I'm very nervous, but I can't switch anything in. I sat here for a while contemplating, like, do I want to swap Noivern in and, like, try and catch a Hydro Pump and then revenge Starmie that way? And truthfully, I almost did it. But as you can see here, Razor clicked Psychic, and I kind of, as I was thinking it over, like, he could click Ice Beam, he could click Psychic, he could click Scald. Like, you know, like, even if he clicks Hydro Pump, I was going to take, like, 70% with Noivern, so it just was never going to be worth it. And I kind of decided, like, there's no way I'm getting a defog off at this point when Scissor's at 25% health. So I did decide to sack the Scissor to the Starmie, and again, it makes this game a very sort of offensive game that is going to be scary. It's going to be tough, because I just, at this point in the game, I'm not entirely sure, you know, am I making the right sacks or not? We just got to play it out and, you know, see how it's going. But I do go into Urshifu here. I do not care that, you know, I'm very clearly announcing that I'm Scarf. It's the most obvious set against him, and this is the best way to give offensive pressure against him. This is an easy U-turn click, because I don't think he's going to go into something like Ferrothorn when I could go for Wicked Blow and do like 40% to him. I think he's going to go into his Coco, which he does, and I'm able to U-turn and get my Diggersby back in, and that's absolutely massive, because it's going to force me into the exact same situation before, where he is just going to struggle against Diggersby. He didn't bring a ton of great responses for it, and it is going to put him in a situation where he is forced to sack something. And I think Razor kind of makes a little bit of a panic play here, and goes for a, you know, he's clearly looking at what to bring in. But for me, I just want to click Earthquake here. It's extremely risk-free. Like, the one risk about it is if he brings Landorus in, and it's immune, but then I get the Adrenaline Orb and can Ice Punch. And if he sees the Adrenaline Orb, he's not staying in. So I could SD on the turn with the Lando as he goes into Pharaoh, and then just click Earthquake twice. So I wasn't super worried about that. I feel like I could Earthquake now. If he stays in, I get the kill. If he swaps out, I could play around with Swords Dance and Adrenaline Orb. He ends up staying in by making this panic play, and I'm able to go for an Earthquake here. So, sorry, I didn't mean to, like, spoil what he did before, but I'm going to try and be a little bit better at that. But that is my mentality. I'm literally just like, Earthquake is free, right? If he goes in the immunity, I get the speed boost from Adrenaline Orb, and I'll be perfectly fine. But now I'm at a point where I think that Diggersby's usage has outlived itself a little bit. I have a little bit of, like, you know, regret potentially sacking this Diggersby, which is the decision I opt to make here. But I feel like I want damage on this Starmie. Like, I want this thing to be in range of Noivern. I want this thing to be in range of close combat from Urshifu. I want it to be in range of so many different things, and I feel like Urshifu's never going to get the opportunity. I feel like Diggersby's never going to get the opportunity to set up really anymore. So my mentality is that I just go for the damage, weaken this as much as I can, and play from there. And that's what I ended up opting doing. Generally speaking, I think in hindsight, it was maybe not the greatest play, because, like, if you look at my opponent's team, like, if I got the speed boost here, like, I'll show you, if I got the speed boost here against, like, you know, if I can get to +2 in front of Ferrothorn, and Landers could, like, give me the Adrenaline Orb boost, like, I was still denting a lot of his team. And especially if I can get to +2, given that Starmie's taking all this Life Orb recoil now if I get to +2, I KO the Starmie, so his revenge options aren't great for me either here. So perhaps sacking the Diggersby wasn't a really smart play, but in the moment I feel like it was really good, because it got Starmie in range of so many other things. And Noivern and Urshifu as a pivot core then suddenly becomes my win condition, just by kind of pivoting around and getting the offensive edge until his mons are, like, sufficiently chipped. So here he does end up going into Grimmsnarl on the Noivern, partially because I think he thinks that I'm just going to go for a Hurricane or you know, something like a Dragon Pulse or whatever. He doesn't want to lose this, because this, again, takes 1 kill every time. And I am able to predict this and go for U-turn. I wouldn't necessarily call it a prediction, because U-turn killed the Starmie anyway, so it just kind of put me in a position where I was, again, able to gather momentum. Now, here was an extremely difficult thing. I did not necessarily know this Grimmsnarl's entire sort of stat spread. I did calc the U-turn against this Grimmsnarl and see that it, like, was max HP and potentially some Fizz Def depending on rolls, but I didn't really have anything that, like, O-code this, right? Because I could have gone into Gengar, but I didn't want to risk, like, Sucker Punch shenanigans or anything like that. Like, if I subbed or something and he just went for Darkest Lariat and ended up being Assault Vest like I was suspecting earlier, then that could have been really bad for me. So I have to just go into Urshifu and click U-turn here, because I think that if I go into Urshifu, if he stays in, he's going to click a Fairy move, which will allow me to go into Gengar, or he can swap out and I get pivoting initiative. So I feel like it's kind of a nice mid-ground play. And the other really nice thing about going for a U-turn in front of this Grimmsnarl, even if the play doesn't work out for me, is again, it puts it in range of something like a Specs Noivern, which is absolutely massive. So I think that was like my mentality behind going for U-turn, and he actually makes this very interesting play into Starmie. And I didn't necessarily understand it in the moment because I thought Starmie was going to get a kill against me. I thought he was either going to go into Ferrothorn to chip me or Landorus to, just take the resisted hit. But I will take the Starmie. I will absolutely take the Starmie. It's nice. I'm good with that. However, I realize in hindsight after he's done this that this puts me in a very awkward situation because I have Rotom Heat, Noivern, and Gengar as possible options to send out. And no matter what I send out, he's able to gain an advantageous position in some way. If I send out Gengar, he's able to send out either Ferrothorn or Grimmsnarl and take advantage of that. If I send out Rotom, he's able to go into Landorus. If I send out Noivern, then he's able to go into Grimmsnarl again. So I just am putting in this situation where I'm not really able to capably offensively pressure anything in the moment. So I opt to go for Gengar because I think it's my least valuable member and can at the very least still click Willow against literally everything on the field. Because going into Gengar was purely just, I at least get to Willow something. Like, that was kind of the upside of it. It was definitely the safest option, but I definitely just found myself in a situation where I was like, I was going to be in a little bit of struggle no matter which mod I sent out here. So, in a way, sacking Starmie actually helps Razor out a lot here because he gets a great amount of momentum and can now start spike stacking me. And because I don't know my scissor anymore, I'm in this, again, very awkward situation where I just kind of got to hope that I'm out pressuring this Ferrothorn. As I see that he keeps going for spikes, I'm kind of like, shit, do I want to sub on this thing? Like, do I think he's going to keep going for spikes? Then I click sub, and then I'm like behind a sub in front of whatever comes out next. Because right now Hex didn't kill Ferrothorn, but after Burn Chip, it absolutely would have. So I felt sub was kind of no risk. If he stays in and attacks, then I just kill with the Hex next turn. If he goes for spikes, then I'm behind a sub and I kill next turn. If he swaps out, then I'm behind a sub. So sub here, always 100% safe play. I end up going for that because, again, it's just going to give me information as well. Like, either he's going to set up the layers of spikes, which won't give me any information, but it'll give me information on this thing's attacking move, which ends up being Gyro Ball. It'll give me information on, his mentality here, right? And I sit on this turn for a little while. I sit on this turn because I'm kind of like, okay, he's just giving me this, and he's kind of just setting up spikes. He's clearly going for something. And I'm, like, concerned that he's going for some kind of Landorus sweep of some sort, because I feel like his playing of just kind of like staying in with this and getting hazards up is suggesting to me that he wants to use Gengar as setup fodder. And truthfully, I make kind of maybe a mistake here. It's hard to say in the moment, but I just kind of take the bait, and at least what I felt was bait at the time, because I kind of just felt that even if Lando came in through a Scarf, I died, and I could just go into Rotom. If it was, a setup mod, I can go for Will-O-Wisp. But he ends up going Grimmsnarl, which doesn't bother me at all. I'm perfectly okay with that. So I'm able to just go for a Sludge Bomb here. I don't think he's going to Sucker Punch, so I can very easily just go for a Sludge Bomb here because I have Willow, I have Sub. Sucker Punch would be a little nutty. So I just go for the Sludge Bomb here. Perhaps he thought that Icy Wind was a big threat for the Landorus, but I needed Sludge Bomb for the Grimmsnarl and for the Beware, as he's going to go for the Darkest Lair and kill my Grimmsnarl. Now, the spikes here are really scary, because even though they only affect my Urshifu, depending on whatever this Landorus is, it could possibly kill me with, uh-oh. That's not ideal. Hold on. Oh, okay. Nice. Top tier people. Yeah, this Landorus could still possibly kill me with something. You know what I mean? It could be Power of Fly, for all I know. That would kill the Urshifu after spikes, whereas previously it wouldn't have. It could be Superpower, that might do it. It could be Choice Band, or, like, just Sword Stance in general. Like, I have no idea. So in a way, I become relieved that this Grimmsnarl ends up killing my Gengar, because it puts me in a situation where I can go into Noivern here and always guaranteed get damage off against both the Grimmsnarl if he stays in and against the Landorus. If I don't 2-hit kill the Landorus, it confirms to me that it's Spadef, and if it's Spadef, I don't think it's going to be some kind of setup variant. If it ends up being offensive, then Boom Burst is doing like 60 to 70% to it. And after that, things like Wicked Blow would kill it, or things like Overheat from Rotom. So I find myself in a situation where Boom Burst is just completely free. There's just Landorus in the back, and he's able to go into his Landorus. And now he is able to Rock Polish on me, and I'm just going to stand in Boom Burst. I have no reason to try and preserve this thing. I just want to get immediate damage off on this so that either Rotom or Urshifu in the back can take it out. And I go for Boom Burst here and do a ton of damage to Landorus. Landorus goes to Rock Polish, and now I'm in a situation where I have to hope that after this kills me with Stone Edge, I either take a Stone Edge with my Rotom Heat, or I take an Earthquake with my Urshifu after Spikes. So he goes to the Stone Edge here to KO my Noivern, except for Psych. I'm lucky and bad. We win the CBDL Championship, and fuck yeah, I'm awesome. So yeah, that was a little cocky, but that was kind of the easiest way that this battle went down. But nonetheless, it was an 80% chance that, you know, gave me the ability to win there. Obviously, as you saw on his screen, on his side of things, he did not have Fly, so, or Superpower or anything like that. So nothing was KOing Urshifu. The tricky thing that is always hard to say, though, and I don't even know what I said in my post commentary, is that he was Resto Chesto. So had I gone into Rotom first, trying to get an Overheat off, trying to win with Rotom, saying, oh, I'll get the kill, give the kill to Rotom, and he clicks Rest on my Overheat, and then, you know, may all of a sudden be in or out of range for like Urshifu or whatever, or he like rests again, whatever he decides to do, right? It might put him in a situation where he ends up winning with Landorus if somehow he's able to put himself in a situation where Overheat's doing nothing to him and he's out of Wicked Blow range. However, if I go into Urshifu, I just win. So it's like a what would I have done situation. I like to think that I would have gone Urshifu after this because I think it would have been safer in the sense that I always landed my Wicked Blow. And if he was Fly, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. I would have just risked the Rotom afterwards. Whereas, you know, if I went Rotom and then I clicked Overheat and it didn't kill or it missed, and then he also had Power of Fly, I would have lost. So I don't know. I feel like my mental order would have been to go Urshifu first, in which case the miss didn't matter. But in this like parallel universe in which I like completely like brain fart and go Rotom Heat instead, then Razor might have actually had it in the end. But guess what? We're lucky and bad, so we don't need to worry about that situation. We end up getting the 3-0 win against Razor in CBDL Finals, and it was a very, very cool, very offensive game. Again, massive apologies that this had to be post-com, but hopefully you enjoyed the commentary. I love doing post-com battles. Unfortunately, I wish it was from my perspective and not his. It did trip me up a little bit here, but I think it was a great game nonetheless. I'm happy to get my second championship in Sword and Shield Wi-Fi. I got my undefeated season. I've never gotten that before. Something I chased back in UBL, but thankfully the one difference in UBL finals and this, despite all the similarities, is that I actually came out on top this time. So I'm very happy about it, but go show RazorrClaw some love. He's an amazing, amazing, amazing player, and he is similar to me. I mean, I don't even think I'm new to Wi-Fi at this point. Oh, that's, okay. Well, that's the thing. We're just going to go to there. Bahaha. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Maybe I'll just do this. Ready? Bop. Crazy. So basically now that Sword and Shield's over, we don't have any more games. That's it. We're done. So let me tell you about the future of what this channel holds, whatever, right? As of today that I'm recording this, it is November 10th. The video is going to come out this upcoming Sunday on the 14th, and then the 19th, BDSP will come out. I imagine a little bit before then we'll have information about even more moveset stuff. We have some information right now, but like even more moveset stuff, even more logistics. And that just means we'll probably have a 2 to 3 week hiatus for battles on the channel post this championship win, which is super exciting. But then we will continue with one BDSP League that I have lined up, as well as the Surge tournament, which is going to go on Wi-Fi for the first time ever and is going to have a massive plethora of amazing faces. So I hope you all go check that out. It is going to be my second ambition in running a Wi-Fi league, but in this case it's a Wi-Fi tournament that I've been running on Showdown for many years, and now I get to export it to Wi-Fi, which is super exciting. So stay tuned for that as well. A lot of great upcoming content on the channel, but I am going to be taking a 2 to 3 week break. So yeah, that's it. Good game to Razor again. He's an amazing guy. Please go check him out. His link's going to be in the description. But we're champions. I'm so happy. This is a great way to end Sword and Shield championship win. I'm stoked. Awesome. All right, y'all. I will see you all later.